At this level, you're still a civilian, just a civilian being measured. The interviews aren't dramatic, they're quiet. A person across the table lets silence sit too long on purpose. They ask the same question 3 different ways and watch which version of you answers first. The polished one, the defensive one, or the honest one. You think you're being evaluated for intelligence. You are. But you're also being evaluated for something colder. Can you hold ambiguity without filling it with ego? Then your life becomes timelines, addresses, phone numbers, coworkers you forgot existed, a friend from 5 years ago who gets a call and suddenly remembers you vividly. Investigators don't just ask what you did, they ask what you're like when nobody is watching. People imagine spies being recruited in shadows. The reality often feels like bureaucracy with teeth. You learn that security isn't only about what you do, it's about what could be done to you. Debt, loneliness, pride, resentment, the need to be admired, the need to be forgiven. This is where you learn the second rule. The agency is less interested in your innocence than your predictability. Training is where the romance dies fast. Not because the work isn't serious, because it's structured. You aren't trained to be a hero. You're trained to be controlled, to write clearly, to speak carefully, to slow your brain down when your body wants to sprint. To accept that you will never have all the information and still have to act responsibly. You learn tradecraft exists, but you learn something more important. Tradecraft isn't magic. It's discipline. You're told the phrase that becomes a reflex: protect sources, protect methods, protect mission. And then, quietly, the line underneath it: protect the agency from you, from your impatience, your need to be right, your urge to show off. This is the level most people forget exists. You don't carry a gun. You carry a badge into a windowless building and sit under fluorescent lights, reading, sorting, comparing, and writing. You learn that intelligence is not knowing everything. It's reducing surprise. You build assessments out of fragments, reporting, imagery, open sources, diplomatic signals, patterns that look meaningless until you stack them. You learn that the world is mostly noise, and your job is to say which noise matters. And you learn the third rule: your words have weight, likely, unlikely. High confidence, low confidence. Those aren't hedges, they're breaks, because people will treat your sentences like permission. If you're good, your job shifts from reading to shaping, not shaping policy, shaping attention. What do we need to know? What can we know? What's urgent? What's just interesting? You learn the most powerful thing in intelligence is often not the answer. It's the question. Ask the right question and the system moves. Ask the wrong one and you waste months, budgets, and credibility. You also learn that collection is not infinite. Every agency wants their priority first. Every mission thinks it's the main mission. You learn to trade, to argue politely, to justify why your question deserves oxygen. And you start to feel how intelligence is really made, not by one brilliant insight, by 1,000 decisions about what to look at. Some people never go near the field and still become essential. This level is logistics, finance, comms, security, legal, tech work that doesn't make movies but keeps missions alive. Flights happen because someone cleared travel. Cover exists because someone wrote it. Equipment works because someone maintained it. People get paid because someone made the system move. This level teaches a harsh reality about the CIA. The mystique is marketing. The power is administration. And administration is where mistakes become disasters quietly. If you move into operations, the job becomes human. It's not constant danger, it's constant judgment. You build relationships under pressure. You learn to read rooms without being obvious, to listen without collecting attention, to speak in a way that can be repeated safely if it gets repeated at all. You learn the moral cost quickly. Your job is influence. Influence is slow, built, maintained, fragile. And the most uncomfortable truth appears. You don't just manage targets. You manage people who have their own lives, fears, and limits. And you do it in a system that will deny you existed if something goes wrong. You start sleeping lighter, not because someone is always coming for you, but because you cannot afford to believe they aren't. At a certain point, every CIA career collides with the same reality. The other side is not stupid. They are patient. They watch patterns. They exploit habits. They look for weak seams. The person who wants praise, the person who feels underpaid, the person who thinks rules are for others. You learn to distrust convenience. If something feels too easy, it might be bait. If someone feels too helpful, it might be a test. If a win feels too clean, it might be staged. You don't become paranoid as a personality. You become paranoid as a procedure. Then you rise, and you stop being the one doing the work. You become the one running the system around it. At this level, you manage tempo, you manage risk, you manage personalities. You manage expectations from headquarters that arrive like weather sudden, unavoidable, and always with deadlines. You learn a brutal operational truth. The job isn't only collecting information, it's preventing mistakes, because a small error doesn't stay small when it crosses borders. The higher you go, the more your work becomes containment of risk, of ambition, of panic, of the human urge to rush. Now you are accountable for a presence, not publicly. Privately, you sit in rooms with ambassadors and hear conversations that are half diplomacy, half leverage. You learn the agency doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists inside policy, politics, allies, egos, and consequences. You approve things you can't guarantee. You deny things you suspect might have worked. You decide which risks are acceptable and which ones are not. And you learn that acceptable and survivable are not the same word. Sometimes the difference is luck. At this level, you work with partner services. This is where intelligence becomes relationship management with sharp edges. Partners help. Partners also have agendas. Partners leak. Partners use you the way you use them. You learn to trade information like currency while protecting what must not be exposed. You learn the smallest miscommunication can damage trust for years, and trust is the only thing that makes joint work possible. You also learn the uncomfortable truth. Allies don't always want the truth. They want an advantage. Eventually you return to headquarters and the battlefield becomes meetings. Budgets, priorities, oversight, interagency fights, briefings for leaders who want certainty and don't have patience for nuance. You learn another truth civilians rarely see. Intelligence doesn't speak for itself. It competes. For attention, for resources, for influence, for being believed. You watch good work get ignored because it's inconvenient. You watch thin work get amplified because it supports a plan already chosen. You learn the difference between truth and usable truth, not because you've become evil, because you've become experienced. Top, the agency becomes a public object. Hearings, scandals, leaks, investigations. People who have never done the job explaining the job loudly. You learn that secrecy creates two reactions, suspicion and myth. And you realize how hard it is to run a secret institution in a country that demands transparency, especially when some truths, if revealed, would break sources, partners, and operations in ways the public would never see. So you become careful in a new way, not just careful with secrets, careful with narratives.